What if the red heifer, the rare biblical symbol of purification, holds the key to one of the most talked about prophecies in the Bible? With the recent ceremony stirring up a storm of controversy, we're left wondering, is this a sign that the end times are near? The red heifer, a powerful symbol of purification in the Bible, has long been a focus of prophecy. Its recent ceremony has sparked intense debate, but what does it really mean? We'll uncover the red heifer's biblical significance, its connection to the Third Temple, and why it's capturing global attention. We'll explore the biblical background of the red heifer, its importance in purification rituals, and its connection to the prophecy of the coming temple. We'll also address recent events surrounding the red heifer and what they might mean for us as believers in these prophetic times. 1. The prophetic significance of the red heifer. The red heifer, mentioned in Numbers 19, plays a crucial role in the purification rituals required for temple service. According to the Bible, the ashes of the red heifer were used to purify individuals who had become ritually unclean, allowing them to participate in temple worship. This ceremonial act symbolized the need for atonement and preparation to enter God's holy presence. The purification process was part of a broader system of sacrifice and cleansing that foreshadowed the coming of Christ, the ultimate purifier. Historically, the red heifer was a rare and highly sought-after animal with very specific requirements outlined in the Torah. It had to be completely red, without any blemishes or defects, and never have been used for labor. For centuries, Israel has waited for the perfect red heifer that could fulfill the prophecy, as the ashes from this animal were considered essential for the purification of the people before the building of the Third Temple. The spiritual significance of the red heifer is profound. It represents purity and atonement, pointing to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Just as the red heifer's ashes purified the people in preparation for temple worship, Christ's sacrifice on the cross purifies us from sin, making us worthy to approach the presence of God. In the New Testament, Hebrews 9:13-14 draws this connection. The blood of goats and bulls sanctified them so that they are outwardly clean. How much more then will the blood of Christ cleanse our consciences from acts that lead to death, so that we may serve the living God? For Christians, the red heifer is not just a historical or ceremonial symbol, but a reminder of Christ's work in our lives. It reinforces the continuity between the Old and New Testaments and points us toward the fulfillment of prophecy through Jesus. The appearance of a red heifer in modern times is not merely an interesting curiosity, but a significant marker of God's unfolding plan for the world. As we reflect on this, we are reminded that God's timeline is often beyond our understanding. While the red heifer is a vital part of the Jewish purification process, it also reveals to us the ongoing unfolding of God's plan in both Jewish and Christian contexts. Even as we wait for the fulfillment of prophecy, we can take comfort in knowing that the ultimate sacrifice has already been made for us through Christ, and through Him we are made clean. 2. Recent developments and the red heifer ceremony. The red heifer, long a subject of fascination and prophecy, has recently been thrust back into the spotlight, drawing attention from people eager to witness the fulfillment of biblical predictions. The ceremonial use of the red heifer has been planned for years, but recent events have caused a surge in speculation. In 2023, 5 red heifers were brought to Israel from Texas, raising hopes that the ritual purification required for the Third Temple was finally within reach. The excitement over these red heifers comes from the long history of searching for a perfect specimen, as outlined in the Bible. Numbers 19 specifies that the red heifer, without blemish and never yoked to a burden, must be sacrificed outside the camp, and its ashes used for purification. These ashes are a key element needed to purify the people so they can participate in temple worship. However, the path to this moment has been anything but straightforward. In the wake of the heifer's arrival in Israel, many have expected an imminent red heifer ceremony. The anticipation was further heightened when it was announced that a ceremony was planned for April 2024, likely centered around Passover, a time of celebration and reflection. The plan was to carry out the ritual in a public ceremony that would be broadcast, symbolizing a moment of prophetic significance. However, the political climate in Israel, particularly surrounding the fallout from the October 2023 terrorist attacks, brought about delays, leaving the fate of the ceremony uncertain. The ceremony, which was initially intended to take place on the Mount of Olives, faced significant opposition from political forces. With tensions high and the Israeli government under pressure, it was clear that a public event would be politically sensitive. In response, a different ceremony was conducted in July 2024 in Samaria, a location that did not meet the specific requirements of Jewish tradition, leading to debate within both the Jewish and Christian communities about its legitimacy. Despite the confusion, this event still holds prophetic value. While it may not fully align with every biblical and Jewish requirement, the very fact that it took place signals that the preparation for the Third Temple continues to move forward. As Christian prophecy watchers, we must recognize that God's plan is unfolding, even in the midst of uncertainty. While we do not know the exact timeline, we can be assured that God is working behind the scenes to bring His promises to fruition. For us as believers, the Red Heifer's appearance is a reminder that God is in control of the timing of prophetic events. We may not always understand how or when His plan will come to completion, but we can trust that every detail is part of His divine purpose. This ceremony, regardless of its full fulfillment, should encourage us to remain watchful, patient, and faithful as we await the final return of Christ, knowing that God's will be accomplished in His perfect timing. 3. The confusion surrounding the ceremony. The recent Red Heifer ceremony has caused quite a stir, but with that stir has come confusion. Many prophecy watchers and believers in Israel have eagerly anticipated this event, seeing it as a pivotal moment in biblical history. However, the location of the ceremony and its alignment with Jewish tradition have sparked significant debate. The ceremony was conducted in Samaria, not on the Mount of Olives, which has led to questions about its legitimacy. In Numbers 19, God specifically instructs that the Red Heifer ceremony should take place outside the camp, but there is ambiguity in the text about the exact location. While Samaria is not explicitly mentioned in the Bible, it's clear that for many Jews the ceremony needed to take place on the Mount of Olives, given its central significance in Jewish tradition and prophecy. The Mount of Olives holds a particular reverence, as it's seen as the place from which the Messiah will ultimately return. So, when the ceremony took place elsewhere, it raised eyebrows and led to accusations that it wasn't the real ceremony. The Temple Institute and other religious authorities in Israel have weighed in on the matter, with some declaring that all the red heifers are disqualified, casting further doubt on the ceremony's validity. However, there's also a strong sense of anticipation from those who believe the ceremony was an essential step, even if it didn't fully comply with all the specifics. For many, the fact that a red heifer was sacrificed at all marks progress, even if it wasn't performed exactly as the Torah outlined. Some argue that the event itself is significant because it signals that the preparation for the Third Temple is still in motion. From a Christian perspective, the confusion surrounding the ceremony can serve as a reminder that prophetic fulfillment isn't always as clear-cut as we might expect. While the Bible offers us signs and symbols, the details of how prophecy unfolds often involve layers of complexity. The location, the participants, the timing, everything is part of God's unfolding plan. But we may not always understand how it fits together until we look back and see the full picture. This ambiguity also teaches us a valuable lesson in patience. As believers, it's easy to get swept up in the excitement of prophetic events and jump to conclusions. However, we are called to exercise discernment and wait for God's confirmation in His perfect timing. The confusion surrounding the Red Heifer ceremony should remind us that we need to stay grounded in God's Word and trust in His sovereignty, even when the details are unclear. As Christians, we must also be careful not to place too much emphasis on the events themselves. While the red heifer is important in the context of prophecy, it is ultimately Christ who fulfills the need for purification. The ceremony may or may not have been perfect, but what matters most is the perfect sacrifice that Christ made for us on the cross. This red heifer ceremony, like so many prophecies before it, points us back to Christ, the ultimate purifier, and the one who will ultimately fulfill all the promises made in the Old and New Testaments. 4. The temple and its prophetic role. The construction of the Third Temple is one of the most significant and debated prophecies in both Jewish and Christian eschatology. The Bible speaks of a future temple that will be rebuilt in Jerusalem before the return of the Messiah. The prophecies in Daniel and Revelation indicate that this temple will play a central role in the final events of history, including its desecration by the Antichrist. But how does the red heifer ceremony fit into all of this? The Third Temple, as described in Scripture, is not just a physical building but also a symbol of the fulfillment of God's promises. It will be a place of worship, where sacrifices and offerings are made, just as they were in the Old Testament. But this temple is not without controversy. In Daniel 9:27 we read that the Antichrist will enter the temple, put an end to the sacrifices, and set up the abomination of desolation. This act of desecration marks a critical point in biblical prophecy, signaling the rise of the Antichrist and the impending return of Jesus Christ. For Christians, the Third Temple represents a fulfillment of prophecy, but it also highlights a time of trial and tribulation. The temple's construction is not a cause for celebration, as it signifies the moment when the world will be forced to choose between the true Christ and the false Messiah. This is why it is important to remember that the temple, while prophetic, is not the ultimate focus of our faith. The focus should always be on Christ and His return. The preparations for the Third Temple have been ongoing for decades. Various groups, including religious Jews and Christian prophecy enthusiasts, have been working tirelessly to see this prophecy fulfilled. The red heifer plays a crucial role in this process, as it is necessary for the purification of the people before they can participate in temple worship. However, as we've seen, the ceremony is not without its challenges. The political and religious tensions surrounding the construction of the temple only add to the complexity of the situation. For Christians, it is essential to understand that while the Third Temple is an important prophetic sign, it is not the central focus of our faith. As Hebrews 10:10 reminds us, we have been made holy through the sacrifice of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross is the ultimate fulfillment of all Old Testament rituals and sacrifices, including those performed in the temple. The building of the Third Temple may be a sign that the end times are drawing near, but it is not the final answer to our salvation. As we await Christ's return, we are called to stay focused on the gospel message and to continue sharing the hope of salvation through Jesus. The Third Temple may be rebuilt, but we know that Christ will return to establish a new and eternal temple, one that is not made by human hands, but is filled with His glory. In the meantime, we are called to be watchful, discerning, and faithful, trusting in God's timing and His ultimate plan for redemption. 5. The debate over the red heifer's role in prophecy. The red heifer ceremony has reignited debates within both the Jewish and Christian communities about its significance in the prophetic timeline. While there is no direct prophecy that specifically states the red heifer must be sacrificed before the coming of the Messiah, its role in the purification process has made it a focal point for many prophecy watchers. For Christians, the red heifer symbolizes Christ's ultimate sacrifice, but for some in the Jewish community, it is viewed as a necessary step toward the rebuilding of the Third Temple. This divergence of perspectives highlights the tension between the Old and New Testaments and the ongoing fulfillment of God's promises. From a Christian perspective, the red heifer represents a foreshadowing of Christ's work. In Hebrews 9:13-14, the writer compares the purification rituals of the Old Testament to the cleansing we receive through the blood of Christ. The blood of goats and bulls sanctified them so that they are outwardly clean. How much more, then, will the blood of Christ cleanse our consciences from acts that lead to death, so that we may serve the living God? Christ's sacrifice on the cross is the final atonement for sin, rendering any future sacrifices obsolete. For Christians, the red heifer's role in prophecy points to the sufficiency of Christ's work and reminds us that he is the ultimate purifier. However, for many Jewish people, the red heifer still holds a significant place in the anticipation of the coming Messiah. According to Jewish tradition, the ashes of the red heifer are needed to purify the people before they can approach the temple and participate in worship. Despite the Christian belief that Jesus' sacrifice fulfilled all sacrificial systems, many Jews continue to view the red heifer as essential for the establishment of a purified people, capable of participating in the coming temple worship. For them, the red heifer's appearance signals that the time is near for the rebuilding of the third temple, which is seen as a precursor to the Messiah's arrival. This debate illustrates the broader tension between the expectations of the Jewish faith and the fulfillment of prophecy through Jesus Christ in the Christian tradition. As Christians, we understand that the need for the red heifer ceremony has been fulfilled through Christ. However, the appearance of the red heifer in modern times may be a reminder that God's plan for Israel and the world is still unfolding. It reminds us that while we await Christ's return, God is still working through his people, and we are called to be part of his redemptive plan. As we reflect on the red heifer's role in prophecy, we are reminded to keep our focus on Christ, who is the ultimate fulfillment of all Old Testament rituals. The appearance of the red heifer may stir anticipation, but it should never distract us from the fact that Jesus Christ is the final sacrifice for sin. Regardless of how God's plan unfolds, we can trust that his ultimate purpose will be fulfilled in his perfect timing. 6. The timing of prophecy and the red heifer. The red heifer, a rare and significant animal in biblical prophecy, has sparked much discussion, especially concerning its connection to the end times. But what does the timing of the red heifer's appearance really mean for us? While the Bible gives us signs of what is to come, it also makes it clear that no one knows the exact time or day when these events will unfold. Jesus himself said in Matthew 24:36, "But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." This passage underscores an essential truth. While we are called to be watchful and discerning, the timing of prophetic events is entirely in God's hands. The red heifer, like other signs of the end times, serves as a reminder that God's plan is unfolding. But we must be careful not to rush to conclusions about when Christ will return. The presence of the red heifer, the search for it, and the ceremonies surrounding it may be significant, but they are not necessarily an indicator that the end is imminent. Instead, they point us to God's sovereign control over the timeline of history. For centuries, the Jewish people have waited for a perfect red heifer to be born, and now, with recent ceremonies, the anticipation has only increased, but the timing of these events remains uncertain. The ritual purification required for the building of the third temple hinges on the presence of the red heifer, yet there is no clear indication in the Bible that these events must happen in a specific sequence or at a set time. The Temple Institute in Israel has worked diligently for decades to prepare for the rebuilding of the temple, but even with the appearance of the red heifer, the timeline remains unclear. This highlights the truth that God's timing is not our timing. From a Christian perspective, this should be a reminder for us to live with expectation, but without anxiety. We know that Christ will return, but the exact timing is not for us to know. Jesus gave us signs, like the appearance of the red heifer, to remind us of the fulfillment of prophecy. But we must also remember that God's plan is unfolding according to his perfect timing, not ours. The red heifer may be a sign that we are moving closer to the fulfillment of certain prophecies, but we must trust that God will make all things clear when the time is right. As we wait for Christ's return, we must continue to focus on our mission to share the gospel and live faithfully, knowing that God is in control of the timing. The appearance of the red heifer should not cause us to panic or be overwhelmed by the signs of the times, but rather, it should encourage us to stay alert, keep our eyes on Christ, and trust that his return is certain, even if the timing remains a mystery. The red heifer serves as a powerful reminder that while we may not understand all of God's timing, we can trust in His perfect plan. As we watch for the fulfillment of prophecy, we must do so with patience, waiting eagerly for the day when Christ will return and all things will be made right. Conclusion. The Red Heifer ceremony is a profound sign of prophetic significance, connecting us to the rebuilding of the Third Temple and the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. While there's confusion surrounding its execution, especially with recent developments, it serves as a powerful reminder that God's plan is unfolding in ways we may not fully understand. Whether or not this specific ceremony holds all the required elements, it points us toward God's perfect timing and His promises. As we observe these prophetic signs, we are reminded that God's plan is still in motion, and we are part of a grand, unfolding story. The red heifer, with its ties to ancient rituals and its connection to the temple, invites us to reflect on the continuity between the Old and New Testaments. While the ceremony may be clouded with ambiguity, we must remember that Christ is the fulfillment of all sacrifices and purifications. We no longer need a red heifer for purification, because Jesus' ultimate sacrifice has already made us clean. The red heifer reminds us to stay focused on the truth of the gospel, Jesus Christ, and trust in God's timing. Whether the Third Temple is rebuilt tomorrow or in years to come, we remain faithful to the fact that Jesus will return to reign as King and establish His eternal kingdom. If this video helped you understand the significance of the Red Heifer ceremony, share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Do you think the recent events surrounding the Red Heifer are a prophetic sign, or is it simply a historical curiosity? Like, share, and subscribe for more insights into biblical prophecy and the fulfillment of God's promises. Let's stay watchful, rooted in faith, and ready for Christ's return. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update as we continue to explore the signs of the times together. What are your thoughts on the red heifer and its connection to prophecy? Do you believe it's a pivotal moment in the preparation for the Third Temple, or do you see it as an insignificant event in the larger picture of biblical prophecy? Share your perspective and let's discuss.